You are not here to learn how to impress women. You are here to learn how to protect yourself. The truth is simple. Most men tolerate far too much. Not because they are weak or lack value, but because they were never taught where the boundary lines. Modern society has convinced men that endurance equals virtue, that if you are patient enough, understanding enough, and selfless enough, you will finally deserve love. However, Machiavelli would have laughed in your face, because he understood what most men never learn. Patience is a virtue, but too much patience is simply self-betrayal in slow motion. Today we flip the script. You are here to stop betraying yourself, to recognize the subtle, invisible behaviors that quietly steal your power, not with anger or ego, but with the calm clarity of a man who knows his worth. Here is the brutal truth. A man who tolerates everything ends up with nothing. That is why today we will expose 8 behaviors no man should ever tolerate from a woman. Not out of anger or pride, but out of self-respect. Because a man who tolerates everything will eventually be left with nothing. Stay with me until the end, because each point builds your emotional armor. And if you miss even one, you will remain vulnerable to the wrong women, and invisible to the right ones. Let us begin. Number 1. Disrespect disguised as jokes. Disrespect never begins loudly. It starts with harmless jokes and small digs that test your self-respect. Imagine this. On a date, she smiles and says, "Wow, you're shorter than I expected. Cute though." Most men laugh it off, thinking that staying cool means tolerating it. But what is really happening is that she is testing your boundaries. Machiavelli warned, injuries must be inflicted at once so that their effect is minimized. Meaning if you allow the first act of disrespect to slide, you invite more. Here is how you maintain your power. Stay calm. Do not joke back. Simply say, "I do not joke about respect." Then change the subject. No anger, no drama. Just presence in that moment. You show her you respect yourself first. And a man who does that does not chase validation. He commands it. Number 2. Emotional manipulation through guilt. Emotional manipulation through guilt is one of the softest yet deadliest tools of control. It does not demand, instead it makes you feel wrong for standing up for yourself. For example, she cancels plans, and you feel annoyed. Suddenly, you are labeled as too sensitive, as if you were making a big deal out of nothing. Number 3. Weaponizing silence for control. The focus shifts, and you find yourself defending your emotions, instead of addressing her actions. Machiavelli warned, a wise prince learns to recognize the noose before he feels the rope. In other words, if you are apologizing for how you feel, you are already caught. Here is how you maintain your frame. Never argue about your feelings. Clarify your boundaries clearly, and say, "I do not feel bad for respecting my time." Then, let silence take over. If she continues to use guilt, she is not seeking partnership. She is testing how much of yourself you are willing to give away. Silence can be healing, but in the wrong hands it becomes a tool of control. When a woman ignores your calls, withdraws affection, or freezes you out after minor conflicts, she is not attempting to solve a problem. She is pulling the leash. For example, you express a need, and she goes silent. You wait. The tension grows. She knows you will crack first, and you always do. Machiavelli taught that one must be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves. Silence is her trap. Do not walk into it. Here is your power move. Do not chase. Do not explain. Respond once with clarity. Then detach. Focus on your goals and let her feel your absence. A man who does not fear her silence becomes untouchable, because he cannot be led on a leash. Number 5. Using emotional highs to cover red flags. Number 4. Testing boundaries through disrespect. Most women will not challenge your frame directly. Instead, they test it through small, quiet acts of disrespect. These include arriving late, interrupting your mid-sentence, or flaking without apology. These actions are not loud, but calculated. Picture this. On a first date, she arrives 30 minutes late with no excuse or apology. Most men remain calm, but that is a mistake. Every tolerated act of disrespect teaches her that this man has no boundaries. Machiavelli's insight was clear. It is much safer to be feared than loved if one cannot be both. Not fear through aggression, but through unshakable standards. Here is how you maintain your frame. Stay calm. Offer no lectures, no ego. Simply say, noted. No anger, just clarity. If it happens again, withdraw your time and energy. Scarcity creates respect, because men who accept everything end up losing everything. One of the subtlest forms of manipulation is the emotional roller coaster. Extreme affection and intense connection, followed by disrespect. She floods you with affection when you please her, but the moment you express discomfort, the warmth disappears. In relationships, you share a boundary, and suddenly she becomes distant. Yet, when you conform, she is all love again. This is not random. It is training you to associate obedience with being loved. Machiavelli's timeless lesson reminds us that benefits should be granted gradually, but injuries must be inflicted all at once. Love bombing is the benefit. Silent punishment is the injury. Watch the sequence carefully. That is where the game reveals itself. Here is how you maintain control. Detach from the moments and observe the patterns. If her affection only appears when you comply, it is not connection, it is control. Your compass must be your standards, not her mood swings. Stand firm, stay calm, and preserve your power. Number 6. Gaslighting your intuition. Gaslighting your intuition does not need to shout, "You're crazy." Instead, it uses softer attacks. "You're overthinking," "You're too sensitive," or "You're making things up." In long-term relationships, when you raise a valid concern, such as her texting an ex, she does not address it. Instead, she flips the narrative, saying, "I didn't know you were this insecure." Now you find yourself defending your sanity rather than her actions. This is classic deflection. Machiavelli reminded us that the vulgar crowd is always taken by appearances. The same applies here. Gaslighting attacks your perception, because your clarity threatens her control. Here is how you remain untouchable. Do not argue over feelings. Do not seek permission to trust what you feel. Stick to the facts. State your boundary, and stand by it calmly and unwaveringly. A man anchored in his own mind cannot be swayed by emotional manipulation. Number 7. Shaming your masculinity. In today's world, subtle attacks on masculinity are pervasive. You are told you are too aggressive, that real men should be more sensitive, and that dominance is toxic. This is not an honest debate. It is a battle for your frame. In a relationship, when you lead decisively, she reframes it as you being controlling. When you express a strong opinion, suddenly you become problematic. This is not about kindness. It is about softening your edge to make you easier to guide. Machiavelli's insight cuts through the noise. A prince must learn how not to be good. Virtue is contextual, and when wielded against you, it becomes a weapon of control. Here is how you flip the script. Stop begging for moral approval. Your masculine traits, leadership, decisiveness, ambition, are not sins. You do not explain them, you live them. Lead with calm certainty, because a man who respects his own nature commands respect without asking. Number 8. Punishing you for having a life outside of her. A healthy relationship encourages individuality, but some women will punish you for investing in your mission, your friends, or your hobbies. Not with open fights, but with guilt trips, passive aggression, and subtle sabotage. In real life, you cancel casual plans to prepare for a major project. And suddenly you are told that work matters more to you than love. But this is not about love. It is about pulling you off your path. Machiavelli would smirk at this illusion. Men judge more by what they see than by what they do. She is reacting to how it feels, not to what is true. Perception has become her weapon. Here is how you hold your ground. Stay calm, stay unmoved, and affirm your priorities without apology. Say, my mission is non-negotiable. You are welcome to be part of it, but never instead of it, because a man who remains loyal to his path becomes untouchable, not out of arrogance, but out of alignment. Ironically, that is when she truly respects you. The most important part of this video. If you are still here, you have already done what most ignore. You have given your attention to what truly matters. Not noise, not quick fixes, but the kind of truth that transforms you, that alone puts you ahead. Now listen carefully, because what I am about to tell you is not just advice. It is a mirror. If you reflect on it and let it sink into your bones, it will change how you see yourself, how you move, and how the world responds to you. This is where the shift begins. Most men never realize this until it is too late. Every boundary you fail to set becomes a silent lesson, a lesson she teaches you in regret, not with force or cruelty, but through small, invisible patterns that chip away at your dignity. It does not come with a slap. It comes with subtle moments. A disrespectful comment you ignore, manipulation you brush off, a need you suppress to avoid conflict. Each time you let it slide, you are not being patient or noble. You are being trained. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He saw how power is rarely taken by violence. More often, it is surrendered through small concessions and habits of self-betrayal. His writings were not about oppressing others. They were about recognizing when you are being quietly conquered, not by armies but by your own blindness. The woman testing you is not your enemy. She is seeking clarity. She is looking for a man who knows where he stands, who does not flinch, who commands respect by existing. Because in nature, softness without structure is not respected, not in politics, not in war, not in relationship. That is why Machiavelli's deepest lesson was never about domination. It was about vision, knowing exactly where you stand, and never bargaining with that foundation. He knew this truth. The man who holds clarity cannot be controlled, not by fear, not by guilt, not by subtle manipulation disguised as love. Imagine this image. A king does not lose his crown because an enemy storms his castle. He loses it when he forgets to wear it. His enemies do not dethrone him. His own negligence does. This is what happens to men every day. They lose their sovereignty, not because women are malicious, but because they stopped acting like kings. They allowed small compromises to become habits. They traded respect for temporary peace. They let guilt replace clarity. From this moment on, your path is simple. Draw your lines early. Make them clear, firm, and unapologetic. Not with anger, but with calm certainty. Defend them quietly and consistently. You do not need to raise your voice to protect your peace. And when necessary, detach and walk away. Not to punish, but to preserve yourself. This is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of sovereignty. Sovereignty is not noise. It does not demand attention. It is the silent aura of a man who has chosen himself regardless of approval. Machiavelli's true gift was not teaching men to conquer others, but to stop being conquered by their own weaknesses. The man who knows his worth does not need to fight every battle. He chooses his wars with precision. He understands that not every reaction deserves his energy. Because here is the final truth. A woman will mirror the standards you enforce. If you tolerate disrespect, she will give you disrespect. If you hold your ground with calm, she will either rise to meet your standard or remove herself. Either way, you win, because real power is not controlling her. It is never needing to. The moment you understand this, you step into a different category of man. You become untouchable, not because you fight harder, but because you have stopped kneeling for things beneath you. This is the Machiavellian way. Sovereignty, clarity, quiet strength. And now it is yours. One last message for those who truly want to change their life. For those ready to detach from the 99% and play a different game. What I am working on will change the way women see you and the way you see yourself. It is coming soon, so stay tuned. If this spoke to you, do not just keep it in your head. Write a comment, even just a few words. It helps you remember, and it might help someone else too. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this content and share this with someone who in your eyes needs it right now. Just trust your instinct. We are all trying to become clearer and more solid inside. So let us build minds that do not break.